Hi, this is the third installment of this story. You can see the previous ones at the links in the description. Let's get started. Finally, I reunited with my godchildren. Sedel took them to a park, and I met them there. The four of us had a great day. Last weekend, I met Jane. It unfolded pretty much as I expected, pleading and lots of crying on both sides. Surprisingly, she didn't blame me. She admitted that it was all on her. When she snooped on my phone, she discovered that I had moved from the condo, read my Reddit posts, so she knows everything I know. And more importantly to her, that I'm not dating. Before the meeting, I had another session with my therapist to discuss my anxiety attack and the upcoming conversation with Jane. She advised me on the best way to move on, outlining the following steps. 1. Hit rock bottom. 2. Identify and take control of your emotions. 3. Focus on self-improvement. 4. Take a break, literally. 5. Be constructive. Many of you champions advised me to keep my emotions in check. I am sure I'll experience anger, sadness, and anxiety. I mustn't let it cloud my words and judgment, as I am prone to having another anxiety episode. My therapist also shared breathing techniques that had helped me. Let's fast forward to last Saturday. I asked Mr. P to check if she was alone. She arrived on time, alone and stunning, wearing a new short dress and high heels, which she hates, but knows I like. I won't lie, my heart skipped a beat. She smiled at me when I opened the door, as if she were genuinely happy to see me. I remained calm and expressionless, inviting her to come in with a gesture. I offered tea. Knowing she loves chamomile tea, she accepted, and I made myself a coffee. We sat across from each other, the table in between, and I took out my phone to start recording. I initially tried to transcribe word for word and incorporate boxing references, but it became too lengthy and crude, so I gave up. Here's a summary. After some trivial small talk that made me feel awkward again, she started crying, claiming that the Jane who made me suffer is gone now. She mentioned the concept of a fair fog and couldn't believe what she had done to me. I responded, "Then you know I think your letter has been sugar-coated." She insisted that everything she wrote is true, but I called BS on the notion that Flirty brainwashed her, stating she's much smarter than that. I demanded her to tell me the truth, and when she went silent, I raised my voice, emphasizing that she wasn't allowed to stay silent again. I had to take a deep breath because I was getting angry, saying, "You have to come clean to me right now. I know more than what you wrote in your letter." Regrettably, she confessed to wanting to be with Baldi. She acknowledged enjoying the attention she received, feeling thrilled and aroused when she noticed Baldi eyeing her. She admitted that it started about a week before the incident with the elliptical machines. During that time, when I was changing in the showers and she was waiting for me outside, Baldi engaged in a flirty chat with her, leaving her astonished that he would come on to her. She cried as she shared this with me. Responding, I asked, "Is that all it takes for you to abandon your morals and ethics? A strong body and a bird brain?" From that moment forward, I referred to Baldi as bird brain. She acknowledged being foolish and selfish, taking me for granted. However, she assured me that this involvement with Baldi was purely physical, devoid of any emotional connection. She swore she never uttered "I love you" to him, and emphasized that I am the sole owner of her heart and body. Taking a deep breath, I managed to regain some composure. I then confronted her about our lack of intimacy over the past 3 months and suggested that perhaps she was longing for bird brain during that time. She denied this, claiming that she couldn't bear a life without me. I challenged her, saying, "I don't believe you. You had a good income. You could easily sustain a decent life with bird brain." She reiterated that she doesn't love him and that he was just a toy. I called her bluff again, recounting the incident when I saw them together at the mall. I'm going to copy this part. "OP, I saw you at the mall with him, hugging, kissing like when we were engaged." She was fidgeting. "I'm so sorry. OP, tell me the truth. Do you love him?" She shook her head. "I liked how people stared at us, but I don't love him." "OP, seems like you were the perfect couple, which would never happen with us, right? You love the attention which you would never have with a person like me." "Che, please don't say that." "OP, why not? It's true. It is. I don't perceive myself as an attractive man. I'm the kind of guy anybody wouldn't look twice." "Gee, no, you are the man of my dreams. I only want to be with you." "OP, if you love me so much, then why cheat? What did he give you that I didn't?" She couldn't answer the question. I repeated it, and she covered her face with her hands, finally admitting she considered Birdbrain's body more attractive than mine. Another blow. It was something I expected, but damn, it hurt. Jay, I swear I had a moment of weakness and I hate myself for that. OP. One moment? I yelled again. That moment lasted 9 months. Crying again. It went out of control. OP. 9 months. 9 fucking months of disrespect and lies. Tell me, how can I trust you ever again? Was Bird Brain the only one? What will happen when the next Dutch bag steps in front of you? You were very good at lying and hiding your cheating. Now she looked desperate. I'm telling you the truth. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I've reflected. I've seen my life without you and I am so sorry. I'm sorry I cheated on you. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry your family hates me. But most of all, I am so ashamed I hurt you. I beg for your forgiveness. I'm here to come clean and fix things so we could be together again. A lot of tears fell from her face. Before D-Day, I'd give an arm to ease those tears. Today, I only felt anger. OP, I think you are not getting it. I can no longer trust you. I can't be your husband anymore. There is no way I can erase the image of you in that room with him. You texted him the very same day I informed you I was heading to my parents, ready to cast me aside. My God, Jane. Half an hour after I left, he was inside you and raw. You even allowed him to finish inside. Why? By this point, tears were streaming down my face, and I compelled her to respond. She looked defeated. She admitted it excited Bird Brain more, and she liked it. Since she couldn't get pregnant, she believed it didn't matter. Swallowing hard, I felt a huge knot in my throat. With a trembling voice, I asked, "What else?" I was fishing for more information, but I didn't expect to hear what was coming. Jane couldn't meet my eyes. She looked down and said, "He made me beg him to finish inside." This was an uppercut to me. I couldn't speak for several minutes. This is when I hit rock bottom. We both cried and Jane kept saying, "Forgive me, forgive me." She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled it away. Then she revealed that the first time Bird Brain finished inside her was the first time she denied intimacy to me. She felt dirty and didn't want me to be tainted. I felt disgusted, almost throwing up. She swears that's when Bird Brain became more demanding and threatened to come and tell me everything because he thinks Jane belongs to him. I couldn't utter a word, still feeling the knot in my throat. I wiped my tears with my sleeve, using our sign language to tell her that her makeup was running. She went to the bathroom and I could catch my breath to calm down a little. While she was away, I confirmed there was no way I would take her back. I'm so disgusted, feeling like I was gutted out. But I also knew I needed to know this, needed to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. I don't want to carry this anger and confusion anymore. When she returned from the bathroom, I told her I can't go on. I need space and time. She said she understood. Before she left, she asked if I would ever forgive her. I told her I don't know, but I appreciate her honesty. She hugged me, but I didn't reciprocate. She cried and I could feel her tears wetting my neck. She swore in the name of my late father-in-law, her hero, that she would never cheat on me again, that she had gone no contact with Bird Brain. She called him Bird Brain herself and pledged to devote her life to us, to our marriage. She even proposed gaining weight again to prove her commitment to me. I told her she's saying nonsense. We both made a big effort to lose weight, but she said therapy made her realize she's a narcissist and an attention junkie. I gave her a key copy of the condo to get all her stuff. She finally left. I thought I would cry a lot, but strangely, I felt a sense of relief. It's as if my mind is telling me, now you can move on. I lay down and reflected a lot, even skipping a meal. In my mind, I finally accepted that the love of my life is gone. I guess I got my closure. Several events have transpired in the past few months. But today, on February 17th, my divorce is finalized, and I am officially a single man once again. Let's rewind to October 2022 for a moment. I've had a good glimpse into my life as a single man. I've been visiting my parents' house to learn how to cook, discovering a newfound passion for it. Last weekend, I even tried my hand at making bread, and though it might have been a bit ugly, it was absolutely delicious. I plan to practice more and bake a cake for my godchildren on their birthday next March. Additionally, I've noticed a growing intolerance towards topics related to cheating. The sitcom The Office used to crack me up, but after witnessing the themes of cheating and gaslighting, it lost its humor for me. I can't stand it, and I doubt any of the writers have experienced being cheated on. I had a conversation with my attorney, who mentioned that Bird Brain's lawsuit was progressing. This reminded me that I wanted to speak with Frank. In short, I met Frank, and he informed me that Bird Brain was fired the same Monday I spoke with him. To add to that, Bird Brain had been living illegally at Frank's father's house. Since Bird Brain had been Frank's employee for years, Frank initiated a civil lawsuit for trespassing, ensuring Bird Brain couldn't be near Frank or any of his properties for the next 5 years. Any violation would involve the police. When I asked about Jane's potential involvement in the lawsuit, Frank clarified that Bird Brain confessed she was unaware of the situation and had only gone to the house to exercise under his guidance, using the repaired equipment. Frank assumed Jane and I were still together and felt he owed me the information. Frank, having experienced being cheated on in his youth, has zero tolerance for such situations. He showed me something intriguing, a soundless video from one of his CCTV cameras capturing the gym's cafeteria. One table is occupied by a man with his back to the camera, and soon Harry walks over to him. It becomes apparent they are having a conversation, and Bird Brain's face is revealed for a brief moment. A sad expression, red eyes, and tears on his cheeks. The video ends as they walk out of the frame. Frank and I both shared a laugh, and I jokingly said I might make that video my screensaver. It was recorded the day before Bird Brain was fired. I attended my initial session with the psychiatrist, who diagnosed signs of depression resulting from a combination of anxiety and insecurities. He prescribed a mild antidepressant to be taken daily until our next session. Initially, I didn't notice any significant changes. Concurrently, I began kickboxing lessons, and although my coach commended my reflexes, I knew I had a long way to go. Jane retrieved all her belongings from the condo, including the large picture from our marriage. Following a suggestion from my brother's friend, I decided to sacrifice the living room to create another bedroom, transforming the dining room and kitchen into a shared space. This adjustment would result in 3 bedrooms, and I hired someone to handle the renovations. My attorney informed me that Jane had her own legal representation and a meeting was requested. I was advised to go along with whatever was proposed, as my lawyer would handle the negotiations. If there were any unreasonable requests, my attorney would call for a timeout to discuss them. The meeting took place at Jane's attorney's office the following week. Jane appeared stunning but remained quiet, occasionally stealing glances at me. After introductions, Jane's attorney, a man in his 50s, mentioned that since I had already refused to pay alimony, they would not bring up the issue concerning Jane's actions, adultery. My attorney accepted this condition for the record. The division of our assets proceeded swiftly since I didn't want anything, and Jane claimed she had taken everything she valued. Additionally, our possessions weren't particularly valuable. Finally, her attorney proposed 5 sessions of marriage counseling, suggesting that if I agreed and attended with an open mind and honesty, Jane guaranteed a smooth divorce. My attorney negotiated this down to 3 sessions with a no-contact rule between them. When I looked concerned, my attorney kicked my foot under the table, signaling me to play along. I noticed Jane making a face she used when she really wanted me to agree, so I reciprocated with a facial expression of "Oak, you win," and she responded with a smile, the unspoken language of our marriage. Later, I asked my attorney if marriage counseling was necessary. He explained that it was a necessary risk because the judge assigned to our case might favor Jane's attempt at reconciliation, considering that I was not actively seeking it. On the other hand, the judge might side with me and disregard the counseling. It was akin to flipping a coin, and the judge could either grant an immediate divorce or order more counseling and or a period for reconciliation. In mid-October, we attended our first marriage counseling session with a counselor named Dolores. Seated on large sofas, we faced each other with Dolores in the middle. After hearing the background and the primary reason for our divorce, she asked both of us about our expectations. I expressed my desire for an amicable divorce, while Jane revealed her intention to reconcile. When asked for her opinion on my goal, Jane insisted that she never stopped loving me and didn't want a divorce. The counselor requested that I not interrupt. Next, Dolores inquired about Jane's goal from my perspective. I expressed doubt about the possibility of reconciliation, citing my lack of trust in Jane and the belief that she was in love with her affair partner, AP. Jane attempted to interject, but Dolores asked her not to interrupt. When asked to explain my reasons, I brought up instances of gaslighting, Jane's giggling the day before D-Day, and her eagerness to part ways on D-Day. Jane then defended herself, asserting that she didn't love Bird Brain and had never declared her love for him. Despite his constant messages, she claimed minimal interaction with him during the day. She admitted enjoying the thrill, secrecy, and the attention from others. Jane wanted to show me her phone to prove she wasn't talking to Bird Brain that night, but I dismissed its relevance, noting her past habit of deleting conversations. Dolores mentioned the possibility of recovering deleted messages using apps. I challenged Jane to give me her phone, suspecting she was still in contact with him. Though hesitant, Jane eventually handed over her phone, insisting, "Please remember the Jane who texted is not me anymore." Curious about her cryptic remark, I asked, "What does that mean?" Jane pleaded, "Don't make me say it. I was in the fog." I sought clarification from Dolores about this affair fog, and she explained that it clouds judgment due to the excitement and focus on a new relationship, causing the person to ignore the consequences of their actions. Jane apologized deeply for her disrespectful text to him, expressing her inability to understand her past behavior. At that moment, I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to know the content of those messages and how she might have disparaged me, considering the level of trust I had previously placed in her. Following that, Dolores turned to me, inquiring about the conditions necessary for reconciliation. I outlined two major hurdles that seemed insurmountable. Firstly, Jane's prolonged deception had shattered my trust in her. Secondly, I could never be intimate with her again after she had shared her body with another man. Jane teared up at this revelation, asserting that it was purely physical, akin to using a dildo. She swore that bird brain wasn't impressive at all. I reiterated my first reason, emphasizing the breach of trust. In a desperate plea, Jane insisted, "OP, I have never made love to him. You are the only one." My anger surged and I retorted, "And that's why you didn't touch me for the last months." Dolores intervened, directing the next question to Jane, seeking to understand her motivation for cheating. Jane opened up about her past as the chubby girl, bullied and ignored. Loneliness marked her teenage years, and even at university, she felt left behind by friends. Her academic achievements were the only thing preventing complete isolation. Then she met me and it felt like finding a kindred spirit. As she lost weight, her body transformed, garnering attention from men. Flirty and her friends fueled her confidence, reaching new heights when Bird Brain also showed interest. She told me, "You don't know how it feels to be ugly." I responded by sharing my experiences of numerous rejections and friend zoning, highlighting that at work, female colleagues created a list of handsome male colleagues in which I did not feature. I explained that I had faced discrimination due to my ethnicity, associated with poverty and perceived ugliness. Hurtful nicknames and societal biases had led me to adopt weight gain as a protective shield for my wounded ego, according to my therapist. Dolores inquired whether I could see Jane's remorse. I acknowledged that I could sense her remorse, but only because she got caught, not due to the act of cheating itself. Jane admitted to knowing she messed up, and that's why she confessed to people we both knew. Dolores was particularly interested in this confession and asked Jane why she confessed to individuals unaware of our marital problems. Jane explained that she felt she deserved punishment beyond my anger and cold shoulder. Many people called and berated her, including SIL, who can confirm it. She lost friendships and most of my relatives disowned her, but she willingly accepted the consequences if it would aid in reconciling with me. I was left speechless. Dolores pointed out that most unfaithful individuals tend to hide their affairs as a defense mechanism, but Jane didn't. She owned up to her mistake, and Dolores suggested I give her credit for that. I asked Jane what would have happened if I were still unaware. She explained that Bird Brain was becoming aggressive and demanding, threatening to disclose the affair himself. He frightened her, insinuating harm might come to me, and she was afraid of what he might do. I scoffed. In her words, "I think you finding out was the best thing that could happen." It made me react and realize how screwed up I was. I brought up the fact that Bird Brain is in love with her, and she acknowledged that she knew. He hated me, trashed me, and demanded to disrespect me in my own house, knowing that if I were in the picture, Jane would never be his. Dolores then asked me, "What does your wife gain from seeking this marriage counseling? If she's so in love with Bird Brain, wouldn't she be eager to divorce you sooner? Why is she making all this effort? I must remind you she has already lost the respect of her acquaintances." I couldn't find an answer. I acknowledged that I'm not her meal ticket, as she has a decent job and a support system in her sister. I then questioned, for the sake of argument, let's say we reconcile and live together again. What would happen then? I doubt everything she tells me. Every time I'm not looking, I'd suspect. It'd be torture for me. Jane responded, "I know it would be difficult, but I'd never give you reasons to doubt me." I retorted, "You wouldn't for now. Oh, what about in 2 years when the dust settles? When signs of trust begin to emerge and another Dutch bag catches your eye or stares at you?" Jane kneeled in front of me, looked me in the eyes and said, I'd never hurt you again. The two most devastating experiences I recently had were when I received the divorce papers and thinking you may have been badly injured when they called me from the hospital. If you give me another chance, I'll always remember these two times I thought I lost you and devote my life to making us happy. Once again, I found myself without words as the session came to an end. Upon returning home, I examined Jane's phone. I observed that Bird Brain was still blocked. I decided to unblock him and a flurry of messages flooded in. Babe, are you okay? Babe, call me. Babe, I'll come to your house to check on you unless you call me first. Babe, where are you? I purchased an app to recover deleted messages, feeling nervous about what I might discover. Fortunately, I managed to retrieve most of the earlier messages, although the older ones were a bit challenging. While I expected to find disrespectful messages toward me, Jane surprisingly avoided mentioning me much. I encountered some sexting conversations, but knowing Jane, she didn't seem to enjoy them. Birdbrain often used rude words and Jane disliked that. He called her babe and other ridiculous pet names I never dared to use, even during our honeymoon phase. Although he expressed numerous I love yous, I couldn't find a single one from Jane. I felt a twinge of relief, but immediately scolded myself for feeling that way. As Jane mentioned, Birdbrain used to mock me, hurling insults like fatty, pathetic loser, and little girl. Whenever he brought up the topic of me, Jane deflected by saying, I don't want to talk about my husband. In the most recent messages, it was evident that whenever she didn't play along, Birdbrain grew angry and threatened to come to my job to spill the beans, while she begged him not to. Obviously, it was just a bluff as he doesn't know where I work. I searched for messages on D-Day -1, but Jane hadn't texted him, and there were no call records. Delving further into her communications, I discovered she was messaging a group chat with Flirty and two other girls on that night. Their banter was amusing, and some of their comments even made me chuckle. However, by D-Day +1, Jane had been kicked out of the group. In the subsequent marriage counseling session, the focus shifted to our past. Dolores inquired about how we first met. It happened at the university while both of us were in the library working on assignments. I possessed the last copy of a particular book, and Jane requested it because she had to leave early. However, I also needed it for my job, so I suggested we make photocopies. Despite being in different academic disciplines, we shared the same teacher, making the assignment identical. We chatted in line, and during our conversation, I became captivated by her beauty, intelligence, and kindness. While she perceived me as a good person, I lent her the book, and we exchanged contact again when she returned it. Though I arrived late at work, it felt completely worthwhile. Initially, we maintained a friendly relationship until I mustered the courage to invite her out, to which she declined. Consequently, I greeted her like a friend in the hallways but refrained from making further advances. Surprisingly, a week later, she invited me out and our dating journey began. Dolores then probed into what made us fall in love with each other. For me, it was a moment when I took Jane to eat Japanese food for the first time. As she struggled with chopsticks, she eventually exclaimed, "Screw this," and skillfully pierced the meat to eat. Witnessing her candidness and hearing her curse for the first time made me laugh, and that's when I uttered, "I love you" for the first time. Jane's realization of love took longer, occurring during a trip we both embarked on. Anticipating our first intimate moment, she hesitated due to concerns about disappointing her father and her own fears. She kept this information from me, and that night she started crying and apologized. My response was understanding, assuring her that her readiness was paramount, and I wanted her to feel secure and comfortable with me. As we cuddled and slept, she felt a newfound sense of security and uttered the L word for the first time. During this session, I didn't succumb to anger or raised voices. Instead, it became a pleasant trip down memory lane. I returned Jane's phone, expressing my belief that she is not in love with Birdbrain. She took her phone, smiled, and left without uttering a word, respecting my no-contact request. The upcoming Sunday saw one of my cousins, whom we'll call Karen, hosting a Halloween party at a bar and extending an invitation to me. The event didn't call for costumes, so I groomed myself and attended the party solo. Karen was among the many people who received Jane's confession, and she assured me of introducing me to a very attractive date. This acquaintance, let's call her Princess, was in her late 20s. I greeted her, and it didn't take long for me to notice a familiar expression on her face, one of disgust and disappointment, as if I had a giant booger dripping from my nose. Typically, I wouldn't let such reactions bother me, as I had my beautiful wife. However, this time I was curious to see how much I had improved since the time I met Jane 18 years ago, as she never looked at me with such disdain. Immediately, my defense mechanism kicked in, and I tried to maintain distance from Princess. Despite my efforts, Karen seated us together in a booth, and I clumsily attempted to engage in conversation. However, Princess barely responded and seemed disinterested. As I struggled, another guy approached her, expressing surprise at her presence and inviting her to dance. She looked at me and asked if I minded, to which I replied, "Go and have fun." Watching them disappear into the crowd, I couldn't help but think he didn't know she was here, yet he was looking for her. I suspected she might have texted him to come and save her from this creep. When I eventually found Karen, she was talking to Princess. Before they noticed me, I overheard Karen saying, "You said he's a catch," and Princess responding, "He is." Karen saw me and they fell silent. I excused myself, apologizing to Princess for not meeting her expectations. She shrugged and Karen shot me a glare. Once home, I initially dismissed Princess as a materialistic person, but she stirred up old, dark feelings from my youth. Negative thoughts overwhelmed me. I'll be alone from now on. Childless, wifeless, I am a very unattractive man. It will be very hard for me to build another relationship. I'm almost 45 and alone, a total loser. Another anxiety attack ensued. Following my therapist's advice, I sought refuge under my sheets, crying and trembling until I woke up early the next morning. Tears and sweat had soaked my pillow, my head ached, and I sat on my bed, lost in dark thoughts for nearly an hour until my alarm rang. Although it was time to get up, I lacked the energy. I skipped the gym, found solace in a shower floor sobbing session, and reluctantly went to work. A close colleague noticed my subdued demeanor, suggesting that I looked sad, and that's when I realized that depression had set in. Karen later sent apologetic texts about her friend's behavior, which I chose to ignore. Attempts to go to the gym proved futile as my energy levels plummeted, and I headed home. The following Tuesday, I accompanied my godchildren for trick-or-treating with my sister-in-law in Mexico. This tradition occurs on November 1st and 2nd. While I managed to cheer up a bit, the gloomy feelings returned once I reached home. The third and final counseling session took place 3 days after Karen's party. When I arrived, I attempted to put on a good face, but it didn't go unnoticed by Jane. She asked if I was okay, and I responded with a forced smile, insisting that I was fine. However, Jane saw through the facade and suggested rescheduling the session because I wasn't well. Despite my insistence that I was fine, Jane expressed her concern, and Dolores inquired about my feelings. Reluctantly, I admitted that I was feeling sad. To my surprise, Jane spoke up, confirming my emotions. She sat next to me, took my hand, and asked what was wrong. Overwhelmed, I couldn't hold back my tears. With Jane's comforting touch and Dolores' supportive presence, I regained some composure. After a brief visit to the restroom to compose myself, I returned to find tears on Jane's face. Dolores prompted me to share the reason for my sadness, and Jane confessed, blaming herself. However, I clarified that my insecurities were the root cause. Jane, with sincerity in her voice, expressed her dislike for my self-deprecating comments about my attractiveness, recounting things she admired about me, even citing a playful comment from when I was undressed at the hospital. This brought a moment of laughter, and I began to feel better. Glancing at Dolores, who had been silently observing, she offered advice. We could work on a new marriage concept, leaving the past behind. Jane embraced the idea enthusiastically, while I remained unsure, deciding to discuss it with my lawyer and therapist. The remainder of the session delved into our individual lives. I learned that Jane had secured a new job in a different company, continuing the same role. I shared my endeavors in learning to cook and focusing on mental health. When asked about the positives and negatives of separation, I mentioned the increased business as a positive aspect, avoiding the admission that I sometimes miss her. Jane, on the other hand, expressed her dislike of being alone and not residing in her house with her dearly loved husband. To my surprise, I realized we were sitting close together and she was still holding my hand. In that moment of darkness, her warm touch felt like a pure ray of light. The counseling session concluded, and Dolores signed the necessary documents provided by our attorneys. As we walked together, I accompanied her to her car, still uncertain about my feelings toward her. She inquired if the no-contact request was lifted. I responded with uncertainty, saying I guessed so. Then she proposed going on a date for my birthday in mid-November. Observing my worried expression, she quickly clarified that it would only be a dinner, a chance for us to chat like the good old times. Reluctantly, I agreed but specified no kisses and minimal physical contact. We set a date for 2 weeks later, one day before my birthday. In the meantime, I requested another period of no contact. Thanks for watching. The finale of this story will be out soon. Have a good day.